Hello, Alyssa.
Hi,
Sorry for any
Caryn.
confusion. This is the first time we're doing it live on LinkedIn, and it seems to definitely be a little bit of a challenge, but welcome to Taking the Leap. And I'm super excited to have you here this afternoon and for us to have this conversation. So
Me too. Thanks
I
so much
was,
for having me.
oh, my pleasure. And and I was, and, and I am,
Uh-oh, you still getting feedback?
So what's happening is that I'm actually hearing a delay of about 5 minutes. So I actually can't hear myself speaking at this point. But so um, I'm not exactly sure how we get around that, but we're going to figure that out. So
All right, we'll
I'm going
keep
to
trying to go
pretend
with
that
it.
I don't hear my own voice every few minutes, but nonetheless. So I was trying to think about, how did I meet you? Did I meet you on Clubhouse?
Yes, we met on Clubhouse, which is funny because we are local to each other, but
Exactly.
randomly happened to connect on Clubhouse.
I think that was why I was intrigued, and you were doing events and you were doing all these things that were similar to me. And so
Right?
I thought, okay, I really need to meet this person. So
Yes.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. And Taking the Leap is all about women who have really gone from having a corporate job to doing something really different. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I am in the event planning space. I was a corporate event planner for, hate to say it, but over 20 years now. Seems like, just yesterday I started my
Hmm.
career, but it's been a little bit of time now. I mostly focus on corporate events within the biotech, pharma, medical device space. And it was a career that I always loved, especially, early on in my 20s. Got to travel all over, stay at fancy hotels. What was not to like?
Right, exactly, right?
It was a fun industry to be in, but it takes its toll on you too. It was something people warned me about in the profession that were further along in their careers than me. And young 20-year-old me was like, it's fine, I'll be great. And then I quickly realized, okay, I should have listened to those that have gone before me. And really started to, it takes its toll, as you know, right? Like, it's a demanding job. It it's not a 9 to 5 job. And people expect you to be available when they need you, and sometimes that's morning, noon, and night to pull off an event. So it's definitely been a journey. And I said, it was a career that I loved, but it was one that I started to feel like my passion for it was waning a bit.
So what inspired you to make the changes? Was it just all the travel or the time, or you just wanted a change, or what
Yep.
inspired you?
So I think a few things. One, right? Like, I was feeling a little bit of that burnout, always missing out on family or friends' activities and events, and just feeling like I was always on the road. It got to be tiring. I think one of the things I always joke about is when I noticed that I had been to San Francisco 4 times, but I'd never seen the Golden Gate Bridge. I said, this is a problem because, again, in and out, right? Convention centers, hotels, like, I never even enjoyed the cities I was going to. And so it really just started to open my eyes. But for me, the big catalyst really was the start of the pandemic. So part of my story and my journey is that I lost my estranged husband to suicide several years ago. And it was a journey. I was 31, not a journey I was expecting to go on, at a time in life when people around you are getting married, having children, growing their families. I was on a much different trajectory. And it was really isolating and lonely throughout my 30s. Um, Being in that season of life when no one else around me was, or having trouble finding those people that were like that. So enter the pandemic. We're all isolating, we're all quarantined.
Hmm.
And those of us that were single that I knew and people that I didn't know, I started seeing on networking groups and stuff that were sharing that, oh my gosh, I'm quarantined alone. Like, this is really hard. I'm feeling really disconnected. So I did a one-time girls' night in virtual event. A lot of fun. We, again, took my event planning
Right.
skills, brought on some female comedians, and we just had a fun, girls' night in. And it was such a huge success. I think we had like over 30 or 40 people, and most of them I didn't even know. Um, so it was really cool because I just met so many amazing new people still being quarantined. That led to doing weekly events because everyone was like, this was great. Are you going to do this again next
Yeah,
week?
can we
And
do
I
it
was like,
again? Exactly, right?
and I was like, well, wait a minute here. I was like, I don't know about that. This is supposed to be a one-time deal. But then I said, no, why not? Like, what are we doing, right? We're all locked in our homes right now. So it started to become a weekly thing. And just from there, it grew. And I wasn't expecting it or planning it, but it just kind of happened. And exactly what I wanted all those years of my life was finally starting to come together. I was finding community, finding women in the same season of life as me, going through the same journeys as me. And I was able to start forming a community. And I said, this is it. This is what I was craving. And now I see there's so many other women out there craving the same. And so it led me to start a community focused around that.
That's great. So as you started to move and change and make these transitions, what were the keys to your ability to do it? I mean, what happened and sort of how did you do it? I mean, did you take baby steps? Did you just go head first? Did you really, write a plan? I mean, what really were the keys to your ability to make that transition?
Yeah, so I will say, right, maybe not the best business advice, but I just kind of dove in because it just organically started to happen, right? I was having these events and the people were showing up. And because it wasn't necessarily a business idea from the jump, it was just me doing what I do best, right? Creating an event, creating an atmosphere, creating community. It was all the things that I've been doing in my career all these years and even in my personal life, right? Like I'm someone that loves to host events and bring people together. I was hosting like a dinner club that we used to go out to different restaurants around Boston. Like I just like bringing people
Hmm.
together. And so it was just a natural fit for me. And it started to unfold. And then once I knew there was a business idea here, then I buckled down more, started to get a little more strategic with it,
Uh-huh.
really, get more centered around it and say, okay, like this isn't just about throwing up some virtual events. Like, what is the ultimate goal here? What am I trying to provide to people? What is someone going to get? My community is structured as a membership community. And so if they're going to pay me money every month, I need to
Right.
show up for them and give them value back. And that's something that's very important to me. I've been a part of a lot of organizations where I feel I never got the value. So that was something that I really wanted to focus on. So yeah, I had to really take a step back and say, okay, like there's that say, right? Like if you treat something like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. If you treat
Right.
something like a business, it'll pay you like a business. And
Right.
so I had to start treating this like a business. And that's when I think, we're all in this time of reflection, I think, throughout this
Right.
pandemic. And I just said, it's now or never. If there was a time that I was going to take a chance on myself, as you and I both know, the live event world,
It's been a
I mean,
challenge.
yeah, I mean, it essentially fell apart for a year. I mean, there was just not much work. There were not many events happening. And I said, if there was ever a time to go all in on me, this was the time. And so
And
I
it's
went
even
for it.
evolved, I mean, since you started it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
your role has evolved. Not only has the community evolved, but your role itself. Do you want to share a
Yes.
little? Because when I looked at, okay, so what was your title? You were, it was very different from what
Yes.
I think you originally envisioned, right?
Totally. So again, initially I really focused the community around single women. And then then other women that I knew were like, hey, just because I'm not single doesn't mean that I'm creating, don't want these connections and that I'm not trying to maintain an independence. So then we brought in the scope of the community. But really at the root of it all was my story. I started to realize that people were showing up for the community, but they were also looking for someone who could guide them. A lot of the women that I think were coming into my community were like where I was about 5 years ago. And so they were looking for someone who could guide them in a sense, someone that had walked a journey already and would have some advice to give and to give them hope for a future too. So it
Uh-huh.
really evolved in that I was able to start sharing my personal story more. As I said, losing my husband to suicide, it was a narcissistic relationship, mental health issues were involved, addiction issues were involved. And it was just a really, really wild journey. And so it's something that I've become really passionate about sharing because I've noticed that's what people really connected to is that there's a root to all of this, is that there's a deeper connection, whether you're single by chance or, by choice, it's still all the same. We all have our journeys. We've all had traumas that we've suffered in life. And that's really what we end up bonding over. So
Uh-huh.
I've really evolved the community more. to this, to really standing in your power and finding your voice, because that is really the journey that I was on. That's really the whole story, is that
So
I
the
found my
focus
voice.
really changed during the process
Yeah,
as you started to roll it out, because
right.
people were responding to different things than you went into it thinking that were going to actually happen, right?
Absolutely. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons for me is, we have such, again, I think as an event planner, right? We have such tunnel vision because we have a vision and we have a vision that we're trying to execute. So I was coming into it from that perspective, like, okay, here's my vision. I need to execute it perfectly because
Right.
that's
You're
what
going
I
to
do.
roll it out this way and it's going
Right.
to look like this, but like life, it doesn't exactly always roll out that way.
Exactly. And so that was a big lesson for me. And that's actually a beautiful thing because people were showing me what they needed, what they were drawn to. And as someone that likes to serve others, that's what I needed. I could say
Right.
I want to do XYZ, but if that's not what resonates with people and that's not what people need, it doesn't matter. If I'm
Mhm.
going to be in a position of service, I want to show up and serve the way that they need.
Yeah, I mean, we all can think like, okay, here's how I'm going to do it. And even, with taking the leap, I was thinking, well, why didn't I start this 3 months ago or 6 months ago? But until you find the right message and until you find what it is that's really going to resonate with the people that you want to touch and that are your clients and that are your audience and that are your followers and that are really your community at the end of the day, that's what they need. And giving them that message is really what you want to do. So,
Yeah, I think it's a
and it
great
was a
point. And
surprise, right?
right, it was. It's again, I think deep down it was something I've always wanted to do. Like I'm working on a book right now. I've always wanted to publish a book about my journey, but I'm like, does anybody want to read it? Is this really going to resonate
Right.
with anyone? But I'm finding out the more openly I share and the more vulnerably I share. Like I said, we all have a story, we all have a journey, even if it's not the same, exact thing. There's
Hmm.
parts of it that we can relate to, and I think that it's the essence, right? People are craving connections more than ever, especially in this
Absolutely.
pandemic. And once I just kind of gave it up to the universe and said, okay, like I'm just gonna, my word of the year or phrase of the year is surrender and flow, because I'm just giving it up.
Hmm.
I'm trying to not be that type A personality, and I'm just remaining open to what the universe can show me and where the universe is leading me. And
So,
I
what
think
is
when
the
you're,
name of your community, by the way?
yes, it's called the Contemporary Connection.
Okay, that's a
So
good start. And sort of if you were to profile the women in it, you know, who would be a perfect fit for the community?
so really, I say anyone, which I know is a broad term, but I'd say our demographic right now is those that are probably in like the 35 to 55 range. But we have some women that are in their 20s and we have some women in their 60s, but it's really for those that are trying to find, maintain, or reignite their independence. So it's not just about being single. We have a ton of single women and we have a lot of fun. But it's also about those that are trying to maintain that independence. A lot of times when you get into a relationship, you can lose your sense of self. And
Hmm.
as I said, that's, I think, really for me, what really became the big overarching message is it's about finding your voice again.
And so
And
you
that's
bring
really what I'm trying to
people,
empower people.
experts to the table that can help them in different areas of their life, not just one area of their life, correct?
Correct. Yes. So our community was, and we're evolving. Things are shifting right now as we're kind of moving somewhat out of that virtual space and hoping to do some more live events soon. But right, it was a membership community where we're bringing experts, anyone from fashion styling to dating advice to the not so glamorous stuff, like estate planning or financial planning for
Right.
singles. And so it was just, those topics that are different. For people that are really maintaining that independence or living that single lifestyle. So it's
And your
about,
hope is that it's virtual and then ultimately it is in person. Is that right? Or
right. So it went virtual, obviously, like I said, with the pandemic, but we have a huge following here in the Boston area because that is where I'm from. And so that's where the network has grown the most. And I think everyone, COVID's starting to shift down a little bit. So I think people are feeling excited and ready to really start meeting in person because I think that's one thing. They just want to be in a room, not in a virtual room, but in an actual space with other women that are
well, I
going
hope
on the
to
same
meet
journey.
some of these women and join as
Yes,
well.
you better come.
Definitely, it's definitely on my list to do that. So as you look forward, well, before you look forward, what are a couple of things that you would want to share to women if they really are going to start on this journey? What do you wish that you had known before you started that would have helped make it easier or ease the pain or just make it more fun? Or are there things that, wouldn't have helped?
Yeah, I think for me is the first thing is don't wait. If you have an idea, if you have a passion project, go for it. There is no time like the present. I always like to call it the precious present, right? Like we have to embrace where we are at now. We may have goals and dreams of where we want to go, but here in the now, go for it. There's never going to be a perfect time to start a business or go all in your passion project. So you just have to go for it. So if you're thinking of something, stop waiting. Even if it's a little tiny idea, start making some forward motion, whether it's as simple as picking a business name, securing the domain, just those little steps forward. If you can make a little step forward every day, that I think is the key. It doesn't have to be all in the
Right.
sense that like you've got to quit your job and just go dive head in. That's not realistic for most people, especially if you have to financially support yourself. But
So that would
you
have
can do
helped
it.
you if someone said, "Oh my God, you just don't have to do it all at once. No one's expecting you to have this done in a month or 2 weeks or whatever."
Yep. One of the big lessons I've learned the last couple of years, I was a very black and white person. Like it was all or nothing. And I've noticed gray area is good. As long as you are taking those little steps forward every day and making
Mhm.
some progress, it doesn't have to be those huge leaps and bounds, right? Like taking the leap is that first step, but then it's keeping going, right? It's as I say, it's a marathon, not a
Uh-huh.
sprint. And so
Right.
as long as you're getting out there every day, that's the key. So that was one big thing for me. And I think the other thing is the belief in yourself, right? I still struggle with my self-worth and my self-confidence and the imposter syndrome. Like I could have talked myself out of anything.
Right.
But
I think we all can at moments in time. You're not alone.
absolutely. Right. And so again, that's why these women were showing up because we were all feeling that. And so I think it's trusting in yourself, having that belief in yourself and knowing your worth and knowing your idea. I don't care how crazy it might seem. I mean, I say to people all the time, there's people that get paid on YouTube to like film cat videos, right? Like you can get paid doing anything.
Pretty
So I
much
don't care
anything
how.
these days.
Right. So if you have an idea and something you're passionate about, don't let others talk you out of it. I've noticed sometimes those people closest to you want to keep you safe and help keep you small. So if that's what's happening in your life, you need to find a different circle. Like seek out those people and the networks that are going to help you grow. That's like another
Uh-huh.
huge tip for me is being in rooms of like Clubhouse and things of people like you who are doing those things and who are believers and have that entrepreneurial spirit. Like you need to show up in the places that people are doing what you want to be doing.
Yeah, it's always good to have a role model. It's always good. I mean, part of the reason that I'm doing Taking the Leap is so that you basically are paying it forward, for women who maybe 5 steps behind you or 2 years behind you, or they may be right where you are, but still need that, help and that support to keep going forward. And, just by listening to someone who's doing it, I think you're inspired, you're empowered, and you're also educated. You learn,
Yeah.
oh, you know what? She did that. I think I could try that. Not everything's going to work for everyone, and it's certainly not all going to work the same way. But at the end of the day, one hopes that even if it's one little nugget that you pick up from something that you tried, there's an opportunity, and there's a great way to test it. And so that's part of why I hope that people learn something from these programs and series, and they have a great idea of what they could try or just be inspired by the fact that you're doing it. And also the opportunity to reach out to you and chat with you. So I know that we're going to post what your email and ways for people to reach out. But over the next 3 to 6 months, where do you see all this going? I know you just launched a podcast, right?
Yes, I know we didn't even go down that
Yeah,
endeavor, but
yeah.
yes.
You're speaking, you're a
So
podcaster, you're not only just building this community, but you're sharing a lot about it. So tell us a little bit about that. And
yes, thank you. So yes, my podcast is called Fiercely Forward. I co-host with a friend of mine, again, that I met through the social media world, Jennifer Yassin. And
uh-huh.
we actually started hosting a room on Clubhouse um, about sharing your story to inspire others. Jennifer and I connected because we actually experienced very similar journey. She was married to someone who was living a double life that she knew nothing about. And so, because we shared and opened up on social media and shared openly and vulnerably, it gave us the chance to connect. And then we started to see, again, that's what people want, right? Like, people want to share their stories, but people are scared. They're
Absolutely.
scared about what others think. And so when we started hosting these rooms on Clubhouse, we started to see, when we gave people a platform, so much healing was happening. So many people would reach out to us after and say, wow, like, I just needed to hear someone else say that. I'm glad I'm not alone. So that led us to create the podcast called Fiercely Forward. So using your story to inspire yourself and others to move fiercely forward, and using your journey as fuel to move you forward in your life. So we talk about everything on there, but the root of it is people sharing their stories and their expertise and how they've taken their stories and journeys to create brands, businesses, and to help other people. So it's been
Everyone's
really
story is
exciting.
really powerful. And just saying to yourself, my story is going to help, even if it helps just one person, right?
Absolutely. I
Then
say it
there's
all the
so much
time.
value in it. And it's funny. I remember when I started my first business, if I could only sell one product to someone I didn't know, and I was so excited on that first one, and then you never turn back. You just keep moving
Right.
forward. So I'm really excited for what the future holds for you. I can't wait to join your community,
Oh,
and I
thank
look
you.
forward to us having, more discussions. I mean, every time I hang up the phone from you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so energized and so
Oh,
excited
thank
by
you.
what you're
I feel the
doing.
same.
So
I feel the same way. I love your energy. Like I said, we immediately clicked on
I
Clubhouse,
know,
and
exactly.
I love what you're doing here. I do think it's so important to pay it forward and to get your story out there. So I think it's amazing. I've seen some the upcoming. I know you have another guest this week,
I
and
do.
I
Yeah. We actually, for those that are watching, I'm doing 2 guests a week, at least for the start. And so we have a second one. The second one will be on Instagram Live this week. It's Kiara Shannon, and she has a great story to tell. And next week we'll be on LinkedIn again on Tuesday. And on Thursday, we will be on Instagram Live again. So I hope that
love
folks
it.
take the opportunity. I'll also be posting the replays on a YouTube channel called Taking the Leap, and also on my own website, so on the MastHERmindEX website. So thank you for taking the time, and I look forward to chatting again soon. Thanks,
Thank you so
Alyssa. Thanks for
much,
being
Caryn.
here.
Thank you.